Hello, and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Wicked, Chapter 7 of The Murder in Its Afterlife. The witch had waited 15 years, but her timing was off by 5 minutes. So the temptation to go back and dismember Grammatic was intense. But the witch resisted. She didn't care if she was sentenced and executed for the battery of Madame Morrible's corpse. But she didn't want to be caught because of vengeance against a machine. She took a meal at a cafe and glanced at the tabloids. Then she wandered in the shopping district. Never one for frippery, she was intensely bored. But she wanted to hear them talk about the death of Madame Morrible. She was waiting for the reviews, as it were, and she would never come back to Shiz, she suspected, or to any other city. This was her last chance to see loyal Oz in action. As the afternoon went on, however, she began to worry. What if there was a cover-up? What if the current head, to avoid scandal, hushed up the news of the assault, especially a crime against one so close to the Emperor? The witch began to fret that she would be denied for the credit for her deed. She racked the brain for someone to confess, to someone who would be sure to rush up the authorities. What about Crope, or Shen, or Fanny, or, for that matter, the Margrave of Ten Meadows' nasty Avaric? The townhouse of the Margrave was set up in the deer park at the edge of Shiz. It was late afternoon by the time she reached the Emperor Green, as it was now called. Private residences were dotted about the expanse, each protected by its security force. High walls lined broken bottles, fierce dogs. The witch had a way with dogs, and high walls didn't bother her. She welcomed herself over the walls onto a terrace where a maid was mending. A flower bed had conniption and resigned on the spot. The witch found Avaric in his study, signing some documents with a huge plume pen, and sipped some honey-colored whiskey in a crystal glass. I thought I'd come out for cocktails. You're on your own. Can't you listen? He began, but then he saw who it was. However did you get here without being announced? He said. I know you, don't I? Of course you do, Avaric. I'm the green girl of Crage Hall. Oh yes, what was your name? My name was Elphaba. He lit a lamp. The afternoon was darkening, or perhaps clouding over now, and they looked at each other. Have a seat. I suppose if society forces itself on one's study door, one has no further right to deny it. A drink? A wee one. Alone of them all, he who had been too handsome to leave had grown better looking. He swept his hair back. It was rich and full, the color of polished nickel, and he clearly had the benefit of a life of exercise and rest, for his figure was strong and slim, his bearing erect, his color good. Those born with advantages know how to capitalize them, observed the witch after her first sip. To what do I owe this honor? He said, seating himself across from her with a freshened drink in his own hands. Or is the whole world playing reprises today? What do you mean by that? I had a walk at noon, he said, in the park, with my bodyguards as usual, and I came across a carnival entertainment set up there. It opens tomorrow, I think, and the park will be mobbed with clever students, household servants, and factory workers, with greasy, gabbling families from Little Glickus. There were an unusual cast of children caught up in the allure of a good circus act, mostly teenage boys helping out, no doubt running away from tiresome families in small provincial towns. But the guy was in charge was a bloody little dwarf. Bloody, how do you mean? Asked the witch. I mean offensive, pardon my slang. We've all seen dwarves before, that's not the point. It's just that I've seen this very dwarf before. I recognized him from years ago. Fancy that. Well, I shouldn't have thought more of it, but then you showed up this afternoon for more or less the same zone of memory. Weren't you there yourself? Didn't you go with us to the Philosophy Club that night? We got so drunk, and they had that charm sex thing. That effeminate Tibbet got so wasted and lost his mind, and just about everything else with that tiger. You were there, surely. I don't think I was. Were you? Bach was, squiggly little Bolt, and Fanny, and Fierro, I think, and some others. Don't you remember there was that hag who called herself Yackle, and that dwarf, and they let us in, and they were so creepy. Anyway, it doesn't matter, it's just... Not Yackle, said the witch. She dropped her drink. This is insanity. My ears are having delusions. Everything is all right. I'm paranoid. No, Avaric, I refuse to admit you could remember someone's name for 20 years like that. She was a balding gypsy woman with a wig and some sort of chestnut color eyes and thick with this dwarf. I don't think he was called... Why should I remember it? You didn't remember my name. You didn't scare me half as much. In fact, you never scared me. He laughed. I was probably pretty nasty to you. I was an asshole back then. You still are. Well, practice makes perfect, and more than once I've been called a perfect asshole. I came to tell you that I killed Madame Morrible today, said the old witch. She was proud of this phrase. It seemed less false when said aloud. Maybe it was true. I killed her. I wanted someone to know who would be believed to know about it. Oh, why did you ever do that? You know, the reason just reassembles themselves in different patterns every time I think about it. She sat up a little straighter. Because she deserved it. The avenging angel of justice is now green. A pretty good disguise, don't you think? They both grinned. So about this Madame Morrible, who you claim to have killed, did you know that she gathered your friends and associates together and gave us a little lecture after you run away? You were never my friend. I was too near to be excused. I remember the situation. Nessarose was mortified and shattered by the whole thing. Madame Morrible took out your records and read us a profile of your character as assessed by your various teachers. We were warned about your spikiness, your fringeness. What were the words they used? I can't remember that. They weren't memorable words. But we were told you might try to recruit us in some sort of juvenile attempt to galvanize some sort of student uprising. You were to be avoided at all costs. And Nessarode was mortified. Well, that figures, said the witch grimly. Glinda, too, said Avaric. She went through another slide, like the one she went after Dr. Dillman fell on the magnifying glass. Oh, please, that hoary old lie still in circulation? Oh, all right, was brutally murdered by brigands unknown. Have it your way. Brigands in the form of Madame Morrible. That's what you mean, suppose. So why did you really do it? Madame Morrible had a choice. No one was better placed when she seen that her students got an education and not brainwashing. By hooking up with the Emerald City, she sold out all her students who believed that a liberal education meant learning to think for themselves. Because she was a vile fiend, and she conspired to have Dr. Dillman murdered, no matter what you say. But the witch stopped herself short. Hearing her words about Madame Morrible, she had a choice, an echo of what the elephant Princess Natoya had said to her. No one controls your destiny. Even at the very worst, there's always a choice. Avaric was rattling on, and you've had her murdered. 2 wrongs don't make it right, as we boys used to chant on the playground. Unusually, when we were on the ground with someone's knee on our groin. Why don't you stay for the meal? We've got guests, a clever bunch. So you can call the police? No thanks. I won't call the police. You and I, we're above petulant justice like that. The witch believed him. All right, she said. Who are you married to, by the way? Did you get married to Fanny or Shen Shen or someone else? I can't remember. Whoever, said Avaric, pouring another finger of whiskey. I can't keep small details in my mind. Never could. The Marguerite's pantry was fulsome, his cook a genius, and his wine cellar unparalleled. The guests tucked into snails and garlic, roast crust of fallow hen with cilantro and clementine chutney, and the witch allowed herself a scrumptious help of lemon tart and saffron cream. The crystal goblets were never empty. The conversation was exalted and loopy, and by the time Madame Marguerite was led to the comfortable chairs to the drawing room, the applique on the ceiling seemed to have swirled like the cigarette smoke. "Why, you're flushed," said Avaric. "You ought to have been a tipper all along, Elphaba." "I'm not sure your red wine agrees with me," she said. "You're in no condition to go anywhere. The maid will do up one of the corner rooms. It's lovely. There's a view clear to the pagoda on the island." "I don't care for prepared views." "Don't you want to wait for the morning papers to see if they got it right? If they got it at all?" "I'll ask you to send me one. Now I must go. I feel the need of some fresh air. Avaric, madam, friends. It's been a surprise, and I suppose a pleasure." But she felt grudging as she said it. "A pleasure to come," said the Marguerite, who hadn't approved of the conversation. "I think it's improper to talk about evil all during a meal. It spoils the digestion." "A pleasure oh, but come," said the witch. "It is only in youth that we can have the nerve to ask ourselves about serious questions." "Well, I stick with my suggestion," said Avaric. "Evil isn't doing bad things. It's feeling bad about them afterward. There's no absolute value in behavior. First of all, institutional inertia," claimed the witch. "But whoever's the great attraction of absolute power anyway? Then why say it's merely an affliction of the psyche, like vanity or greed?" said the copper magnate. "We all know vanity and greed can produce some pretty astounding results in human affairs, not all of them reprehensible." "It's an absence of good, that's all," said Paramore, an agony aunt for the shiz informer. "The nature of the world is to be calm and enhance and support life, and evil is an absence of the inclination of matter at peace." "Pig spittle," said Avaric. "Evil is an early or primitive stage of moral development. All children are fiends by nature. The criminals among us are the only ones who didn't progress." "I think it's a presence, not an absence," said an artist. "Evil is not an incarnated character, an incubus or a succubus. It's another. It's not us." "Not even me," said the witch, playing the part more vigorously than she expected. "A self-confessed murderer?" "Oh, go on with you," said the artist. "We all show ourselves in our best light. That's just normal vanity. Evil isn't a thing. It's not a person. It's an attribute, like beauty. It's power, like the wind. It's an infection. It's metaphysical, essentially, like the corruptibility of creation. Blame it on the unnamed God, then." "But did the unnamed God create evil intentionally, or was it just a mistaken creation?" "It's not an error of an eternity, evil isn't. It's of earth, it's physical. A disjointed between our bodies and our souls. Evil is plainly corporal. Humans cause one another pain, no more, no less. I like pain, if I'm wearing calfskin chaps and have my wrist tied behind me. No, you're all wrong. Our childhood religion had it right. Evil is moral at its heart. The selection of vice over virtue. You can pretend not to know you can be rationalized, but you know it's your conscience. Evil is not an act. Evil is an act, not an appetite. How many have wanted to slash the throat of some poor boor across the dining room table? Present company excepted, of course. Everyone has an appetite. If you get into it, the act is evil. The appetite is normal. Oh no, evil's repossessing the appetite. I never had any appetite. I won't have this talk in my drawing room, said the Margreaves near tears. You've been behaving all night as if an old woman had been slaughtered in her bedclothes. Didn't she have a mother too? Didn't she have a soul? Avaric yawned and said, You're so tender and naive. When it's not embarrassing, it's quite appealing. The witch stood up, sat down quickly, and stood up again, aided by her broom. Why did you do it? Said the hostess with spirit. The witch shrugged. For fun? Maybe evil is an art form. But she wobbled toward the door and said, You know, you're all a pack of fools. You ought to have turned me in instead of entertaining me all the evening. You have entertained us, said Avaric broadly, gallantly. This will end up being the dinner party of the season. Even if you've been lying all evening about killing the old schoolmarm. What a treat. The dinner guests drolly applauded her. The real thing about evil, said the witch in the doorway, isn't what any of you said. You figure out one side of it, the human side, say, and the internal side goes into the window, or vice versa. It's like an old saw. What does a dragon in its shell look like? Well, no one can ever tell, for as soon as you break the shell to see, the dragon is no longer in its shell. The real disaster of this inquiry is that the nature of evil is to be secret. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.